Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Marlana Rice. I have been a member of this church since 1982. I came for my children and I stayed for myself. It is a place that I have found to grow and change and friends. We are so glad each of you is here today. If you're a newcomer, we hope you keep coming back and make us your spiritual home. For those who have already made Amherst your home, we hope you will continue to challenge yourself, to grow, and to discover opportunities to learn and to serve. All are invited to join us after the service for coffee and conversation in the Emerson room directly behind us, and it is the place to be. It's where we hang out together. Children and youth are invited to depart for their activities following Time for All Ages. A quiet room for parents and babies is available through the green and growing space in the back of the chapel. And there is a speaker in the adjoining living room space for you so you can still hear the service. For those who are gathered in the chapel, I urge you to either place your phone on airplane mode or turn it off completely to free up web bandwidth for the live stream. Please do so now if you have not done it already.
I add my welcome to the words already shared. I'm Reverend Michelle Buhite, the minister of this congregation. My pronouns, which I offer to create a truly inclusive and brave space for all to live into the fullness of their identities, are she and her. Today's service is focused on poetry, and so I offer opening words from one of my favorite poets and the Unitarian who shares my birthday, E.E. Cummings. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees and a blue, true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I, who have died, am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and wings and of the gay, great, happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any, lifted from the know of all nothing, human, merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now my ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened. There are so many ways that poetry helps us to go deep and to express mysteries and wonders that are often occluded by our day-to-day activities and cares. I carefully chose the word occluded. I have at least one occluded artery, the left subclavian to be exact, that makes it nearly impossible to detect a blood pressure in my left arm, the one that is closest to the heart and thus favored by medical professionals. The occlusion in my left subclavian artery was created by my own cells in an autoimmune mix-up. There is a blockage, yet my arm is relatively healthy because of capillaries that have opened up to do the work. So hear this: where there is blockage, it is possible that smaller vessels, I'll leave a little space so you can imagine what those are, not blood vessels, that they can move in and do the work. So if you are feeling blocked, I have an app for that. Stay tuned.
Now for our land acknowledgement, calling up Sam Groat. Sam will tell you when to do it, okay? We are, excuse me. As we gather, we acknowledge that our church is built on holy ground, land that was nurtured and cultivated by those who occupied it before us. We give thanks to the Seneca, keeper of the western door, and the Tuscarora, two of the 6 nations that make up the Haudenosaunee, also known to our ancestors as the Iroquois Confederacy, which also includes Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, and Cayuga. These and those who preceded them have long been in relationship with the land, despite colonizers' attempts to eradicate them. My apologies. On behalf of our ancestors and acknowledging our own complicity in white supremacy cultures, we ask forgiveness of the land and of the people whose blood was spilled, whose descendants were displaced, and who continue to struggle in a culture that too often does not honor their ways and their contributions. Please offer. We offer this libation as our giveaway as we honor the struggle of all people seeking justice and peace. We seek the courage and wisdom to heal the wounds of the past and build a better future story with all our neighbors and fellow creatures together. It is our custom when we gather to light a chalice. The chalice is a cup or vessel that symbolizes the gathering community. The flame represents the spark that each of us brings to represent the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment to bring more compassion and justice to the world. Today, we light this chalice with the words from the 12th century abbess, saint, and anchorite, Hildegard of Bingen. Fire of the Spirit, life of the lives of creatures, spiritual of sanctity, glow of charity, lights of clarity, taste of sweetness to the fallen. Be with us and hear us. Composer of all things, joy in the glory, strong honor, be with us and hear us. Please join me in our shared response. We gather this hour as people of faith, which glories in sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Our song of intention this morning can be found in the gray hymnal on page 347, Gather the Spirit. The lyrics will be projected in the front. Please rise in body or spirit as we sing.
Thank you.
We are a beloved community, a gathering of people who have chosen to journey together, to encourage one another, and to be part of something important and life-changing. Because we aspire to be such a people, we make bold promises about how we will be together with one another. Whether today is your first time or you've made UU Amherst your long-time home, you are invited to share in our sacred promise. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world.
No, you can say it. No, you can say it.
Each week,
No,
you do that.
right. Yep, you do that. Okay. Careful rehearsal, that's what it's all about. Each week we bring our whole selves, and sometimes that's comic, and sometimes that's tragic, and everything in between. This is the spiritual home where you can bring your whole self, all that complicated joy, sorrow, grief, which I think is different than sorrow, concern. There is a lot to be concerned about in our world. And you can bring all of that into this container. You can be your vulnerable self here. And we ritualize that by coming forward as you wish to place a stone or a shell on the table labyrinth so that you can maybe lay down a burden or bring your whole self here, knowing that you will be held in this community. So as the music plays, I invite you to come forward as you will. I place a final stone in recognition of the joys, concerns, and sorrows of those who are participating online. You are truly part of this community. Let's just share a few breaths as we expand our circle to include those who may not be present, but whom we carry in our hearts. We bring into our circle of love and care those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, those who are overwhelmed and feeling lost, those who have been wronged. We are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness that we share, the consciousness that gives us the power to remember, to love, to care. May it ever be so in our lives. Amen and blessed be. We have a very special treat for our meditation and song. Our pianist, James, is joined by his grandmother, Kathy, for a rendition of Amazing Grace that requires 4 hands. They're going to use all their hands. I leave it to you. Was great. For our time for all ages, I've entitled it Grandmothers, Poems, and Prayers. And normally I walk around a little bit during the time for all ages, but I have some visual aids, and my capacity to hang on to all these things at once is diminished this day. So I want to talk about my grandmother. She's the one in blue, just in case you're wondering. If you're doing the wraparound of who's who there. So my grandmother, Clara Marie, was a church pianist. She apparently played guitar, although I never witnessed that, but there are pictures of her as a young woman with a guitar, so either she borrowed one to just play a trick on us all, or she actually played. She taught piano lessons forever, and she was very influential in my life. So it wasn't until after she had passed that I paid attention to the one bookcase in the music room at the house. I'm having some regrets about singing so enthusiastically earlier. And I did not know that she had a whole shelf of poetry, all by one poet, Elizabeth Barrett Browning. And then I found out that my grandmother was a member of the Elizabeth Barrett Browning Society, which, first of all, I didn't know, and I didn't know such a thing existed. So in 1973, my grandmother gave me 2 books of poetry, Poems for Children by Eugene Field and A Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson, and inscribed, Shelley, from Grandma. I never called her Grandma. I don't know why she signed it that way, unless she wanted future generations to know that we were related, because I always just called her Claire Marie, and you know, people in the future would have thought she was my neighbor or something. So Eugene Field was an American writer, best known for his humorous essays and children's poetry. I have to say that that humor doesn't translate well between the time that he lived, which was a long time ago. I forgot to write down the dates. And today. Some of it is sort of shockingly inappropriate. And of course, Robert Louis Stevenson, who also lived only 45 years, both these poets, and in the same time slot. Robert Louis Stevenson was a Scottish novelist, essayist, poet, and travel writer. So I don't know why Claire Marie gave me this 2-volume set. I'm assuming there were probably more volumes, and maybe she had a plan, but by 1974, that plan had withered. And yet here I am, 51 years later, with volumes that are absolutely pristine, ready to pass them on to my granddaughters. Now, at the time, in 1973, there was no such thing as Ancestry.com, so Clara had no idea that I had Scottish heritage through my father's line. So how exciting to have Scottish poetry. Clara loved acrostics and would write one in every birthday card with the recipient's name. So if you're not familiar with acrostics, that's where you put the letters of someone's name going down and then a word that began with each of those letters. That's an acrostic. My name was a little hard because of the 2 E's in Michelle. 1 E could be excellent, but the second one was a challenge, especially since she didn't like to use the same words from year to year. And they were all supposed to define me. So she came up with exuberant, excitable, ecstatic. Well, you see the problem. I also had been marvelous, mixed up, mischievous, even miraculous. M was a much more interesting letter to work with. So here's the thing. Yes, my grandmother loved a puzzle. And figuring out a new acrostic puzzle every year for my birthday was certainly a puzzle. But her love for me went so much deeper than a cutesy card. I know for a fact that she prayed for me every day from the moment of my birth until dementia took away her ability to know who I was. She was a person that never judged me. I always knew that 225 Forest Avenue was my safe haven, no matter what. And that is the kind of grandma I want to be. Luckily, my 3 granddaughters' names will provide me with years of acrostic puzzles to let them know how wonderful they are. And now let's sing our children to their programming. Go in love, our hearts go with you. Go in joy, our hopes go too. Learn in love and grow in wisdom. Shine your light in all you do. James, you might want to make yourself comfortable. It's a long one, so. So let me begin with an acknowledgement that a service devoted to poetry might seem like a puff piece at a time when the world is clamoring for our attention. Countries are at war, people are suffering, and there are fewer than 90 days to the presidential election. And that is exactly why I am offering a service on poetry as a spiritual practice. We are in this for the long haul, so we need to know how to become long-haul people. We need to pay attention to our own needs so that we can be of service to others and to the people and the principles that we care about. I have found that having a spiritual practice is a vital component to staying centered and energized. That was some of my energy. It just ran around the room. Did you feel it? Spiritual practices are the energy bar and electrolyte drink in our metaphorical knapsacks. They keep us going when our energy flags. There are many spiritual practices you might engage in: yoga, walking, meditation. Today we explore the benefits of poetry as a spiritual practice. When I first arrived at UU Amherst in August of 2015, I noticed that there weren't very many opportunities for people to gather and talk about the deep things in their lives, the things that really mattered. The congregation had been through a lot of turmoil. So what could bring them together in a safe way that might surprise them into a deeper conversation? Aha, poetry. And poetry as a spiritual practice was born. It continues to this day after the service on second Sundays, so you might want to check it out. The premise is simple. Poetry, like music, which is a form of poetry, can open us up in ways that surprise and engage us. And that is the nature of the spiritual journey. We don't need to talk about process theology. We can experience it. So today's service is going to be a sauntering, literally saunter. We are saunterers walking on holy ground. Many of you know my story of how when the new gray hymnals came out in 1993, I opened a box, picked out a hymnal, and just let it fall where it would. And it fell to these words: you do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert, repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscapes, over the prairies and the deep trees, the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clean blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. That poem by Mary Oliver, a poet that I had no experience of until that moment, all of that opened my broken heart in a wave of understanding. Someone else understood despair. Someone I would never know had articulated what I most needed to hear. You do not have to be good. Everything about my upbringing had been about being good because it was nice, because it was the right thing to do, because maybe it would keep me out of hell. Anyone else know about that kind of transactional goodness? Maybe a few. You're not alone. That simple sentence is the first step toward healing religious trauma, by the way. You are not alone. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Did you notice what happened in the room? Within just a few lines, we went to a deeper place. For many of us, it will take decades to untangle that one poem. We are so tightly woven in a web of expectations of goodness and conformity. Let me say here and now, you are safe here. The power of poetry to unravel us cannot be overstated. And you are safe here. You are in a sacred space, surrounded by people who make no claims about having all the answers, but are willing to make the journey. You are not alone. Let's take a small breather as I talk about a spiritual practice known as Lectio Divina, literally the holy word or divine reading. Unlike many traditions, Unitarian Universalists do not have just one sacred text. We find inspiration and holiness in many texts, those written by humans, as well as that which is written upon the world in sunrises, sunsets, and the power of storms. You see, as Peter Mayer affirms, for us, everything is holy now.
When I was a boy each week, on Sunday we would go to church, pay attention to the priest, that he would read the holy word, and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow, take the only difference is, everything is holy now, everything how things have changed since then. Everything is holding now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand me down. But I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is whole.
Oopsie. So, Lectio Divina. In this practice, a poem or piece of scripture or some other meaningful writing is shared, silence is held, and then it is shared again. I'm going to read a poem by the Irish poet David White, and we'll hold a moment of silence, and then I'll read it again. The poem is entitled Start Close In, and it can be found in the book Essentials. So breathe, feel free to close your eyes, adjust the way you're sitting. Start Close In by David White. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way to begin the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To hear another's voice, follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes an intimate, private ear that can really listen to another. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing close in, the step you don't want to take. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing close in, the step you don't want to take. Start with the ground you know, the pale ground beneath your feet, your own way to begin the conversation. Start with your own question. Give up on other people's questions. Don't let them smother something simple. To hear another's voice, follow your own voice. Wait until that voice becomes an intimate, private ear that can really listen to another. Start right now. Take a small step you can call your own. Don't follow someone else's heroics. Be humble and focused. Start close in. Don't mistake that other for your own. Start close in. Don't take the second step or the third. Start with the first thing close in, the step you don't want to take. Thank you for engaging that moment of Lectio Divina. If we were sitting in a circle and had an hour, I would invite your reflections, your thoughts, and perhaps that could happen during coffee hour. I know I live in a funny world, but maybe you can journal about it or whisper to a tree, whatever works for you. So far, we have experienced poetry as liturgy as we lit our chalice. We've experienced poetry as nostalgia, with my recollections from childhood and my commitment to being a grandmother who shares poetry. We have appreciated poetry through the lens of spiritual recognition and renewal, and we have engaged in a form of Lectio Divina, where the poetry works in and through us. So I'd like to invite us into another form of poetry that I learned from my friend Deb Eck. Deb is an amazing artist who lives in my hometown of Jamestown. Our paths have crossed as our daughters became friends and later as colleagues at Jamestown Community College and Infinity Visual and Performing Arts. Deb introduced me to what she calls blackout poetry, where she takes a page from a book and finds words within the page that are meaningful and then makes them stand out as she blacks out or otherwise obscures the remaining words. This is visual poetry. There are words to convey a message surrounded by swirls, images, or simply blacked out words. I have her permission to share these with you. I hope they inspire you. So on one page, it looks very organic, almost like flowers with swooping stems, or maybe it's sunlight, but the words in little ovals. This one has more blacked out area. I love that in one of them you can still see the words. You can see how the page is constructed. It's not completely lost. Now, this one shows something that's a little easier for me, where it's just scribbling. just let loose and scribble away. It still works. It still has beauty. And of course, adding words on top. So adding to what you find in the poetry that is created. So I tried my hand at blackout poetry. My efforts, not exactly artistic, but they are illuminating in the same way that recording and analyzing my dreams can be illuminating. I find that I choose words not out of a conscious decision to create a poem, but because the words kind of call out to me, and the poem emerges. And I am often thunderstruck by what I read. I invite you to try this kind of visual poetry, even if all you do is scribble. All you need is a book you don't mind tearing up and the appropriate pens. Perhaps you've been engaged in poetry as spiritual practice without realizing it. Many people turn to sacred writings for inspiration and comfort, and in Western traditions, the Hebrew Psalms are probably the most well-known. So feel free to recite along with me, or simply let the words fall softly on your ears. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I think sometimes we forget that the Psalms were written as songs and poetry. They ended up being scripture, but they were written from an outcrying of the heart. So this kind of sacred poetry can be comforting even if we may not share the theology that has been attached to it. And I'll say, on bright sunny days, it's pretty easy to be an agnostic. But we may find that we have deep wells of trans-rational ways of coping when our world is shattered. We are complicated beings. As Walt Whitman said, we contradict ourselves. We contain multitudes. The Worst Thing by Shalane Harkin. The worst thing we ever did was put God in the sky out of reach, pulling the divinity from the leaf, sifting out the holy from our bones, insisting God isn't bursting dazzlement through everything we've made, a hard commitment to see everything as ordinary, stripping the sacred from everywhere to put in a cloud man elsewhere, prying closeness from your heart. The worst thing we ever did was take the dance and the song out of prayer, made it sit up straight and cross its legs, removed it of rejoicing, wiped clean its hip sway, its questions, its ecstatic yowl, its tears. The worst thing we ever did is pretend God isn't the easiest thing in this universe, available to every soul in every breath. When I first encountered Shalane Harkin's poem, The Worst Thing, I knew I wanted to spend some time with this poet, get to know her through her words. I found her on Facebook to ask how to pronounce her name, and she responded right away, which is always worth a point or two in my book. The whole book of poetry, Susceptible to Light, is a journey into lightness and joy. The words are playful, while the ideas are deep and encourage personal reflection. Shalane Harkin is a delight to journey with. To journey with a poet, or even a poem, as I have with Mary Oliver's Wild Geese, is an invitation to befriend someone you may never meet and let their words entangle themselves into your life. And if poetry has not been part of your life and you don't happen to have volumes in your home, well, we live in a magnificent time where a simple Google search can set you on a path to discovery. And if the internet is not your thing, I feel confident that your local librarian or minister would be glad to lend their support. Dear friends, we have barely begun to scratch the surface. I haven't even mentioned the deeply satisfying practice of writing one's own poetry. Today's service is simply to whet your appetite and to get your creative juices flowing, because next week is the real poetry as a spiritual practice service, as you bring your poetry and insights to this space. Now, it will be helpful that if you plan to participate in this way, if you could send me your poems ahead of time so I can maybe create a cohesive kind of bucket for the poems to go into. But if not, we're spontaneous beings. You've seen that in action. And we'll just see what emerges. I find that exhilarating and absolutely terrifying. Do remember that poems should be appropriate for Sunday morning and potentially a multi-age group. You've been invited into something unusual and potentially life-changing, and I hope you will say yes to the experience. What poetry is giving you life these days? Is it a song or is it a poem? A few stray words of an affirmation that are keeping you afloat? You could bring those too. I look forward to co-creating a different kind of worship experience that I have never test-driven before. I'm so excited. So I'm so excited we should sing about it. So, oh wait, is that right? Did I put things in the wrong order? I have a gift for that. Oh, no, the song just plain disappeared. Excellent. So we're going to do this the old-fashioned way. This song can be found in the Teal Hymnal. It's number 1031. The Teal Hymnal starts at 1,000, in case you're wondering, oh my goodness, how many pages is this? So it's only the 31st song. It's filled with loving kindness, which is a traditional Buddhist meditation, and it is poetic and wonderful. So James will play an introduction while I find a hymnal. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be, oh, may you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be, oh, may we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Making time for an offering of gifts and pledges is an act of faith, an opportunity for us to acknowledge the good and hardships in our life. Perhaps this is new to you, but Unitarian Universalist congregations are completely self-sustaining. We do not receive funds from the National Association. We send them funds. That means that your contributions literally keep everything about this congregation in motion. Minister and staff, your contributions. Light, heat, AC, your contributions. Paper, website, lawn care, snow removal, garbage collection, and a zillion other inelegant necessities, yours as well. This congregation exists because of you and the acts of service you engage in your generous contributions. Every aspect of congregational life is made possible because of the generosity of members and friends like you. Even the offering is made possible by you, because there are 4 baskets and 1 usher, and so he will need help. We will need help. If you'd like to help pass the baskets along the aisles, please come forward, and Dennis will hand one to you. And if not today, perhaps another day you will participate this way. 3 people, anybody? Ellen's behind you. Madison, and there's Dodie behind you, Dennis also. Dennis behind you. Behind you, Dennis. Turn around. And there you go. There you go. This is a wonderful congregation. While things are collecting, I want to tell you of an experience. I was attending a meeting once, and I was telling the woman very proudly that I was a foul weather Unitarian. I only came on days when the weather was bad because I had a garden to tend. And she said, you know, the doors were open when you came here because someone made the decision to come. And the doors were open when I came here because people before me donated very generously to this church. So thank you for your generous contributions today. Extinguishing the chalice. We began our service with the lighting of our chalice, a symbolic act to remind us that each of us is a spark that creates the flame each of us brings to represent the light of truth, the warmth of the community, and the fire of our commitment to bring more compassion and justice to the world. We extinguish this chalice not to quench the flame, but to return to it into our individual hearts, strengthened by this time together, so that we can share our light with the world. Please join me as we extinguish our combined flame and accept the renewed flame in your own heart, that each of us might bring more light and love to a dark and hurting world. The words are on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts till we are together again. As our service draws to an end, our service to the world is ready to begin. Let me tell you about some of the opportunities to connect and serve in the days to come. We have so many ways to connect and serve in the days to come. All are invited to coffee and conversation in the Emerson room, as I told you earlier, directly following the service. You can go through either of the doors and back behind the chapel and smell the coffee and enjoy it. Are you a singer in search of a song? You are in luck. Choir rehearsals have resumed. See Linda Delory for more information to get on the choir list. Linda, raise your hand. Okay. The presentation of Unitarians in India to be presented this Thursday afternoon by John Rex has been postponed. Stay tuned for a new date, please. With all that is happening in the world, you might find it useful to have a place to share your thoughts or at least think out loud. You have just that kind of opportunity on Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. in a new Zoom group, so you don't have to leave home, to discuss the current events and unwind and talk with like-minded souls. It has begun. See the calendar on our website to get the link in the Friday Weekly Update email. Talk to Peggy Cook. Peggy, are you here today? No? Or Ruth Bowen. Ruth is here for more information. Katie? No. Following next week's service, you are invited to join in an hour of arts and crafts for all ages. Come to the Murray Meeting Room in the administration wing, and if you've not been there, it's wonderful to see, where you will have the opportunity to make a transformation board. There will be a creature creation activity as well. There's an old-fashioned sign-up sheet in the lobby. Please sign up so we will know how many materials to have on hand. But if you don't sign up, you can come anyway, of course. But we like the numbers. direct questions to Katie, our Director of Faith Development. Katie, are you here? She's with the kids. And now we'll hear from someone on the green team who will share a bit about their activities. Is anyone? Okay, here she comes. Wendy Scott, our wonderful director of this.
Hello, everyone. Hello. I'm Wendy. Speak into the mic. There we go. Okay. And I am on the green team, which is planning the Living Green Festival, which happens on September 28th. That's a Saturday from noon till 6. And I'm here to tell you, in case you don't know, about some of the nifty things that are going to be happening. First of all, we will have informative tables and vendors' tables. The vendors will be selling things that are environmentally responsible. The informative tables will be letting people know what sorts of organizations that are dedicated to the environment, containing all of us and everything else, which everything is holy, we just learned, informing us of various practices and organizations in the area. There will be crafts in the tent. There is a labyrinth, a nature center, ecology center, correct myself. There will be a green cafe with not just green food, but other kinds of food. But yes, there will be vegetarian and vegan choices. What else? A bounce house and other things for children. Goats, let's not forget, let's goat buffalo, doing our landscaping, principally nibbling on invasive species, but I have never found out how the goats are trained to recognize invasive species, so maybe we can learn this too. But they're very cute. I don't know if what was it, a llama? An alpaca? We haven't heard from the alpaca outfit, unfortunately, but it was so cute last year. Anyway, there are many, many things to do. I have only scratched the surface. So the point is, save the date, September 28th, Saturday. Also, this takes a lot of effort, which is being put out, but also many volunteers for 1 hour or 2 hour slots during the day. And there is a way to sign up for this, but I'm not exactly sure what is the best way. Who can? Linda Joy. Jill, yes, Jill Fundilla and Linda Joy Groat will help point you to the sign-up sheets. There is also a website which you can easily get to from a QR code or on the church website. What else do I need to tell you? Yes, I know what else I need to tell you. This effort, this is our 3rd annual Living Green Festival. This effort has spawned a lecture series, the Insight series. Every other Tuesday, we have someone very interesting from the community, from organizations of various kinds, talking about the environment and, what shall I say, various aspects of it. This Tuesday, we have someone speaking on the impact of our food choices on the environment. This person is, let me consult my notes, Vanessa Dawson, and she is from Penelope's Place, which does animal rescue. And I'm not sure if she's the person that started with chicken rescue. Is she a chicken rescue person? Yes, but she rescues more than chickens. But anyway, she's going to talk about food choices and the impact on the environment. That's Tuesday night in the Emerson room. We're going for coffee right after the service at 7 p.m. Light refreshments are available, and there's plenty of parking in the back. And more speakers are lined up throughout the whole fall. You can find that from the website. And I think I'm through here. Do save the date.
It is with mixed feelings that we prepare to bid our pianist, James Runfola, a heartfelt bon voyage. Next week is his last service as our regular Sunday pianist, as he continues his journey as a music student at Fredonia. Please plan to be here next week as we blow open the doors with some fabulous music, followed by cake and much appreciation. As always, see the church newsletter, the forward, for information regarding upcoming services and events. And now please rise in body and spirit as we sing our closing blessing, standing afterwards for the benediction.
Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. May the road rise up to greet you as you leave your past behind. I will think about you gently, and I'll hold you in my arms. Now twinkle your eyes at one another. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. Our benediction is words from Mary Oliver. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Go in peace.